Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. And as always, we have a lot to talk about. No Queen's Court last week. I was in Washington, D.C., watching the Knicks live against the Washington Wizards with the MBK fam. Shout out to Sim, for organizing that. And the Knicks fans I met, Lamont, Rodney. Y'all know my condition. I'm not going to remember everybody's name. But for those I did meet, on Dios NYK, who's usually in the chat, I was able to meet him as well. Always a pleasure to meet Knick fans. Tonight we got a lot to talk about. Knicks 9-game winning streak, played OKC, seemed to have them on the ropes. Really thought we would win that game. Wound up being a loss. I'm interested in what the panel learned about the Knicks in that game. We'll talk about that. And then turn around and lose against Chicago. So 9-game winning streak, then a 2-game losing streak. Are the Knicks running out of gas? Is the short rotation catching up to them? We'll talk about that as well. And then tonight we play the Orlando Magic for like the 12th time this season. So we'll talk about that as well. Let me bring in the panel: Tony Crowe, Knicks and Bruises, Lady&TheChef, two Knicks chicks, Geoff Klafter, author of the Daily blog, Happily Ever Klafter, and also a resident member of the Just Nick and It Weekly Show. How's everybody? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Peace Queen. Shout out
Happy
to the
New Year,
panel.
everybody.
Yeah.
The chat.
Yeah. Hit that like button like two Knicks chicks said. It's free. So hit it coming in. And if you forget, hit it on your way out. All right. I mean, let's get into it. The Knicks played 4 games since last Monday. They beat the Wizards 126 to 106. They beat Utah 119 to 103. The Wizards game was in Washington. Utah was at home. OKC was a loss, 107 to 117. We'll talk about that. And then in Chicago, 126 to 139. Let me just get your overall impressions of the Knicks, and then I want to get into what you may have learned, found out, confirmed, concerned about from the OKC game. But just overall, Tony, Lady&TheChef, Geoff, and then Geoff, you'll go first. Second question.
Overall, it was a disappointing week. I think, we should have been at the very least 3-1, not 2-2. So, that kind of hurt. It was looking good, for 2 games and 2 quarters. And then things fell apart, but we'll get into all that.
Yeah, for sure. Lady&TheChef.
Yeah, I thought the 9-game win streak was good while it lasted. I said this on our live on Two Knicks Chicks. We've seen the Knicks do this already, win 9 games in a row. And I don't know. I had a feeling that things were going to get a little bumpy when we got to that 10th game, 11th. I knew things were going to get a little bumpy. I will say, though, that the Knicks, for the most part, had a good December, and they were able to close off the first quarter of the season pretty well, considering they're sitting at third, considering they're missing some pieces. But I heard you say this on your show the other day, Queen. The Knicks are just not there yet, and I'll echo that same sentiment.
Right. Yeah. Geoff?
Well, I guess what I'll say is that I kind of feel like it was set up to happen that way. We've been playing a lot of road games, and I think it kind of finally caught up with us. I mean, we had a tough stretch. And we'll get more into the specifics later, but the thing that I learned is that the Thunder are just an extraordinary basketball team. I mean, they did the same thing to us that they did to Boston a few nights later. So it's not like we did it in an isolation chamber, and the Bulls game was just a straight up schedule loss as far as I'm concerned. I think you saw in the first half we were clearly the better team, and then in the third quarter the tank was on E, and they just second night of a back to back, and just they got hot and we ran out of gas, and just a fusion of confusion of a few confounding things, and then you got a second loss in a row. So I'm not in panic mode by any stretch of the imagination. Is it a tough 2-game stretch? Yes. I think tonight is an important game just because if we can put some distance between ourselves and fourth place Orlando, I think that's really critical. So how we bounce back and who's on the court tonight, I think are two things that I'll be looking for right away.
Okay, all right. Let's jump right into the OKC game. Just give me your initial, just your thoughts on the game. I have a few more questions about it, but just your initial thoughts on the OKC loss, Geoff.
Man, I tell you, we were up by a dozen, and I was like, man, this is better than I thought. They're playing amazing, and then the Thunder just took control of the game in the second half. SGA was brilliant down the stretch, and they just made more plays than we did, and it's going to happen. I'm curious to see if the tables will turn on Friday when we see him again, or if we'll see more of the same. But one game, they've been hot as a firecracker too. I think they've won like 15 straight or something like that now. So I mean, you tip your cap and you move on. Is there something systemically flawed in this team that we saw in that loss? I'm not sure there's one thing in particular that I'm willing to pin it on that says, oh, we didn't do X, and so we have no chance at competing. I thought we showed that we belong on the same court as them, and a couple plays here and there, and we'd have gotten the W's in their building. So I don't think it's time to panic, but a disappointing result for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Lady&TheChef, your thoughts on the game?
First half of that game, I thought that was a good game. It was competitive. I like what the Knicks were doing. I like the ball movement. I like the cutting. I like the passes that Jalen Brunson and the facilitating he was doing. Third quarter reminded me, it was very triggering from last season when we had a lot of weak, slow start third quarters. Not sure what happened there as the Knicks got outscored with 19-37. That can't happen. And then the fourth quarter, we just had no answer for SGA, which I saw several different of our players defending him, from Mikal, I saw Brunson a little bit on him. It was a little bit of rotational of different guys trying to guard him. And it's funny because the guy doesn't move fast, but somehow is very smart and knows how to get to the basket and make the simplest layup moves. Mm-hmm. And then I wasn't really too keen on the matchups defensively and offensively. I was a little scratching my head as far as I thought Cat was going to take it to Isaiah Hartenstein a little bit more. I thought we would have utilized a little bit more to pick and roll. But overall, I just thought the Knicks just ran out of energy and gas in that fourth quarter. We couldn't really pick up and redeem ourselves in the fourth quarter, and it got a little sloppy. We couldn't get any stops on the perimeter. Williams was having a 3-point party. The Knicks just kind of had a collapse, and you saw that. And that's unfortunate because I thought the first half, the Knicks were leading. They did a good job. It did have a playoff feel to the game, and we just couldn't close it out. So I think, this is that was a definite learning point game for the Knicks. And I just don't think that we should utilize, in the league, you're going to have back-to-backs. I know Geoff just touched on that. And I don't want to hold the Knicks' hand, and I'm going to give them credit when it's due in certain avenues, but I don't want to also pacify and hold their hands, as this is a professional league. It's part of playing a professional sport. You're going to have back-to-backs at times. And when you look at other teams who so far figured out the formula at the first half of this season, OKC, Boston, Cleveland, you got to be able to overcome those back-to-back games.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there. Those teams have been together a little bit longer than we have, but I do agree with you. The Knicks just have to figure it out. No excuses. Tony, your thoughts from the OKC game?
So my initial thoughts on the game was pretty positive, and as far as seeing we can go toe to toe with these guys. right? One of the best teams in the league. So that was encouraging. But the loss itself, I was playing the blame game. That second quarter, we really took command of that game, and we did it by committee. It was no one guy. You know what I mean? Like everybody was finding each other, and they've seemingly had no answer for it. Going into that game, we were the best third quarter team. I think they were second, maybe vice versa. But both of us were extremely good going into the third quarter, being our best quarters in the league. And they took command. That fourth quarter, though, that's where I really started to point fingers. I think Brunson took it personal, and he really tried to go toe to toe, blow for blow with SGA, and it really took us away from what had us dominating the game. So, and then Cat had a mismatch. The majority of the night, they were putting small people on him, and he was having one of his better games, like shooting the ball great. Everybody shot the ball great except for Brunson, to be honest. He had a good fourth quarter where he was trying to become or do what he's accustomed to, where it gets tricky. So I give him a little bit of a pass because it is an adjustment for him. He's used to taking over down the stretch for us, right? He had a year of doing it, and now this year he's had moments of doing it as well. But his supporting cast is a lot better than it's ever been. And a night like that, he really could have taken advantage of utilizing his team. He had 7 assists in the first half. I think he ended with 9. You know what I mean? So, he just really, it's a balance for him that he's got to figure out. It's not just the team that's got to figure it out, but he's got to figure out that specific part. When is his time? When do we need him to take over? And when do you got to utilize other guys, especially when they're hot?
Yeah, I agree with this. I said this on the recap show. It was me, Ajay, and Delusional. I hear you pointing to the fourth quarter, but I think the entire game. Sometimes your process cannot be good, but there's other things that's happening that doesn't expose it. So, it's all good, right? But taking advantage of Cat in the post, that's not a fourth quarter thing. That is something, to me, should have been a game plan thing. Thibodeau said in the press conference himself, post-game press conference, that they've seen this before. Okay. I don't know if well, I'm going to, my caveat to all of this is there definitely could be something I'm missing, right? And in no way am I saying I know more than Tom Thibodeau. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you would think that if they putting a small on towns, that you can go to that more often, cause them to react to that. Whether they're going to throw a double team. Now, if they throw a double team, then that creates an advantage for us because Cat can find that open guy. He's a good passer. But even if he just gives it to anybody else, we're pretty good at finding who the open guy is. So I felt like that could have put more pressure on them. And then I also felt putting Hartenstein in pick and rolls. Maybe getting a switch, getting him out there on an island, or something, so that now he has to guard Cat, because putting him on taking him off Cat means he can play in the key a bit more, whereas he has to guard Cat. He's out the key. Right? That gives us a bit more space back there, right? And so I just feel like, and I've said this probably since the season started, I just want the Knicks to get better at recognizing what a team is giving us and what they're taking away. And we have a pick your poison offense where it doesn't really matter what you're trying to take away. There's something else we can exploit, and just doing a better job at figuring that out. Now, you could try to exploit it and go to Towns and he misses all his shots, but it's still the right process, right? Or he passes it out and those guys miss their shots, but that's still, the right decision. I just didn't see a lot of that. And then to your point, Tone, I think there is going to be times where Brunson is going to have to, go at it. If you're passing the ball around and guys are not hitting shots and the offense is stagnant, yeah, I mean sometimes you might have to go and try to get us 3-4 baskets in a row. I'm not sure that was the situation in in the OKC game. Any more thoughts on that? And then the next question, if you have thoughts, as you can well, I mean, any thoughts on that before we move on to the next question?
You go to your question. We could fill it in as we go.
Go on. Is there anything in that OKC game that, remember, the talk was that it was an easy schedule, right, going into OKC, that the Knicks, rightfully so, took advantage of. And we didn't really know what type of team we were because, these teams were kind of soft, or the schedule was soft. What did you see in OKC? Did you see anything that confirmed that? Or did you see something that made you think that, hey, despite the soft schedule, I think we might have something here? Just what did you think about the Knicks themselves and where this team is after that OKC game? We'll start with you, Lady&TheChef, Geoff, and then Tony.
Yeah, for me watching it, I think it was a combination of the Knicks the potential I saw was there. I saw the potential watching that game, especially in that first half. But then I think for me, I'm kind of torn in between the Knicks. They're improving and getting better, but I don't think that, going back to what you said, that they're not ready yet. They're not there yet. And I think, I always go back to what Geoff said a few weeks ago, how the Knicks haven't really been challenged like that yet. And I thought this OKC game was a good challenging game for the Knicks to see, okay, you had a pretty decent, easy schedule, which you should have won those games. But, minus a few that slipped through the cracks, Utah, you lost to Chicago, Dallas, whatever. But I just feel like I see the progress. I saw it in that first half. I thought the way the Knicks played was really strong, really well. It was promising. It looked good. I liked the way the ball was flowing, the ball was moving. But that game in particular, especially that third quarter, that fourth quarter, I said they're not there yet. They're not ready yet. And then the other part of me too, like kind of just hearing a little bit of what you just said, Queen and Tony, for me, I kind of wondered a lot lately. I've been scratching my head and really trying to figure out, I understand coaches can't go in a game and play the game, but I'm putting a little bit of this, for me, as Tony's pointing the finger, I'm putting a little bit of pointing the finger at Tibbs. Mm-hmm. I think I brought this up to you before and you laid it out, worded it very well, but just like the rotations, I think that collectively, yes, it's a professional sport. Guys should be used to playing a ton of minutes. But I think that even, and those in the chat can agree, we've had games where we've been up by 25, 30, and there's 5 minutes left in the game and you still playing your key guys. Why? But I think that when we look at, and I said this the other day on Two Knicks Chicks, I said a lot of our other guys, it's like, especially the rookies, they're like temps. And the temp agency, when the recruiter just called Huck Porty, matter of fact. So he's going to work a shift tonight and play tonight. He's going to work a shift. So when the recruiter calls them and they come up and they play, they give them a lower paying gig in a G League. And then when they, come up to the big lights, to the big guns, they get a call up to play, at MSG and whatever. But I'm really scratching my head to wrap this up on Tom Thibodeau, and that I'm not sure, perfect example, like what you just said, just utilizing a pick and roll, taking advantage of the mismatches and, the adjustments and in-game adjustments that you're doing and the schematics and the schemes. I don't really see that a lot lately with him. And it's making me wonder with Tibbs, how far can this team go under Tom Thibodeau when he hasn't even proved as a head coach he's won a championship? And I know that's a whole nother conversation, but a part of me, I see the potential in where this team could go and get even further. But I'm wondering how much further can they go, and can they go to that next step under Tibbs, who's not a more modern coach, a younger coach who can, get the ball rolling and take this team to that next level that we're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I don't even know if it's pushback. I agree with you when it comes to the schematics. And I'm wondering how much of that is just putting too much trust in Brunson to figure it out, as opposed to laying it out as part of the game plan. Look, if you see a small on Towns, we're gonna wear that out and get as much as we can get out of it. Is he just laying that on Brunson to try to figure that out? Or to me, I feel like that should be part of the game plan. Whenever we see this is how we're gonna handle it. So that was the same question, I had Lady&TheChef about.
Me too.
About that game. Like, so to me, I think the blame is on both, because even if it's not part of the game plan, Brunson, you're the point guard. You got the ball in your hand. How many times have we seen a point guard be like, over here, get over here? So whether it's part of the game plan or not is something he could have done. So I definitely agree. What I will say about, because this is said a lot about coaches who don't win a champ. None of the coaches were championship coaches until they won the championship. Like, so we said that, or this is what they were saying, I should say, about Mike Malone until he finally won the championship with Denver. I think it was 2 years ago. That was the issue with Spoelstra until they finally won it, right? So that's going to always be the thing with any coach until they win it. And with Doc Rivers, they still saying that, and he won, and he won it, we shall see. Let me just, the 7-7, Tony about to explode, the love Tibbs. What's that? Callie Lauren?
Lauren from Cali, salute.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, we shall see. There were some other things you said that I want to save to the next segment in terms about the rotations and the minutes and what we would like to see done. Geoff, did you get a chance to answer?
I didn't yet, but we can move on if you're ready to
No.
go into the next segment. It doesn't matter. But I don't know. I think a lot of times we allow perfect to be the enemy of the good. Really good teams don't go. I mean, bad teams don't go on 9-game win streaks. I know I've rooted for a lot of bad teams in my time. So I know what bad teams look like. When you got a team that can string together 9 consecutive wins, you've got a good core. That's a good place to start. That's a building block. That's a foundation. I think all of us want to enjoy all the features of the mansion while the house is still being built. And what I mean by that is I think you may argue that we have the players in place, but they still, you can have all of the ingredients to build the house, but that doesn't mean the house is finished. That doesn't mean that the insulation where it needs to be. That doesn't mean that all the appliances are in place and plugged in and ready to go right where you need them. That doesn't mean the game room has everything in it that you want it to as a finished product. And the Knicks aren't a finished product yet. And in some ways they're behind a team like OKC. Well, everybody I think is behind OKC right now. They're just on another level. They and Cleveland have just been like ridiculously good. But our net rating is in the top 5 or 6. I mean, as far as starts to the season go, I think that considering all that's new, we're doing a great job. Do I want to win every game? Yeah, that'd be great. But, even the best teams, in this are going to lose 25, 30 games. So, you just have to, you're going to have segments like this. You just hope that the losing is minimized and mitigated. So maybe 1 or 2 games, and then you go back on another 8-game roll or so. But and we'll see where that goes. I think Lady and the Chef brought up some valid points about, is this minutes distribution sustainable? What's Cat doing in the game? A minute and a half left against Chicago in a game that's essentially over. I think that's a legitimate beef. I was not happy to see that, especially when you see him go to the ground and then your life flashes before your eyes, because that could really destroy our season if he has to miss significant time. That's really, he and Brunson are the two injuries we can't really sustain long term, but more so Cat, because I think we've got some guards who can kind of not do the same thing, but carry us a little bit of the way if we miss Jalen for a game or two. Without Cat, we don't have anybody else who can do what he can do. And so, there two things can be true at the same time. I think we're in a good place. I think Thibodeau can do a better job about leaving his guys in a bit too long and recognizing, he always says to his players, the game will dictate what you do on offense. Well, as a coach, the game will dictate what you're supposed to do with your player minutes sometimes. And I felt like, second night of a back-to-back, you're down 16, 18 points in the fourth quarter. Okay, probably going to be a loss anyway. Let's not kill our guys tonight. This is a good night to kind of pull back and tap the brakes a little bit and just let those younger players in there to play. I don't think it would have hurt anything, and the result was clearly going to be the same. And I think we do the same thing on the opposite side. Sometimes we're up by 25, 30, and we just, now that I have a caveat, because sometimes it's like we put in the reserves and then the other team goes on like a 10-12 run, and then games get a lot less comfortable than they probably should be. So I'm more understanding about that. But like the Chicago game, I don't think there was any reason that we should have been playing starters that long into a lost cause.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the rotation and stuff like that in the next segment. I just want to finish out, Tony, if there was anything you learned about the Knicks in the OKC game, and then we'll move more into the rotation.
Well, I mean, like I said, the loss
you answered that already.
No, the loss aside, but I'm just reiterating, the loss aside, I felt like this showed we could stand toe to toe with them. You know what I mean? So that was encouraging. Dominated that second quarter, and they really didn't have an answer. After when I did my show after the game, my blame was really Brunson and Tibbs, and shout out to Shuttle. He was leaning towards Brunson because he's on the floor. I was leaning towards Tibbs because, like you said, he's the puppet master. He pulls the strings. He makes the decisions. You've seen him bench Brunson for defense. You've seen him do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he should have benched him. I'm just saying, call a timeout, whatever. You make the decision. So my blame was for Tibbs. But that all being said, I mean, we're fourth in the league, third in the East. Thibodeau has shown time and time again he overachieves as a coach. You know what I mean? So it's like there's an argument that he's overachieving right now. If we said before the season, hey, we're going to be fourth in the league, third in the East, you know what I mean? Without knowing who's above us or who's behind us, I think we all be like, all right, yeah, we take that. So it's like these two losses sting, but I mean, this is only the second time we've lost two in a row. Prior to the Bulls loss, we had the best record in the league after a loss, which proves that, you know what I mean, we bounce back time and time again. So I still feel like yeah, we're still in a good spot, knowing that we're not complete, whether that means a trade or movement, but just this unit as itself, we're not fully developed yet. We're not fully cohesive yet. And we're sitting at fourth in the league and third in the East. I'll take it.
For now. And then also, we're in the first year of our window. Like I hear us wanting to be further along, but Cleveland, Boston, OKC, they're a little further along in their window. than we are in ours. I feel like ours just started. Like we just put this team together. The other thing I want to say about Thibodeau is, yes, the rotations, and we're going to get into that. The schematics, the I don't know if it was the overall scheme, but not taking advantage of Towns, not putting Hartenstein in pick and rolls. I think I had the same concerns when we played Atlanta. Those are concerns. But with any coach, there's going to be things that you don't like, or things that he doesn't do well, and things that he does do well. And I think when it comes to Thibodeau, there's so much focus on what we don't like, or what he doesn't do well. And the things that he does do well, like we just like, yeah, all right, well, yeah, whatever. I was thinking about this morning, and I may have said that. In my opinion, since Thibodeau has been here, he's been a better offensive coach than a defensive coach, in my opinion. Because it takes a certain type of coach to be able to say, you know what? All right, this is the team I have. What's the best offense for this team? What's going to be our offensive formula for this particular team? When we had Mitchell Robinson, who was it? RJ Barrett, Randall, still top 5 offensive team. Then you get a whole new team. And it's the coach that has to now think, well, how are we going to play now? Like, what's going to be our offensive style with this team, right? As opposed to trying to just take an offense and just ram it down a team's throat, whether you have the players or not. So he gets a lot of flack for not being a good offensive coach. I disagree, though. I do think there are times when he needs to be a bit more hands-on, instead of leaving everything up to Brunson. So yeah, it remains to be seen, whether he can win a championship. It remains to be seen whether Kenny Atkinson can win a championship. It remains to be seen whether the OKC's coach can win a championship. It remains to be seen, But yeah, I just want to balance the field a little bit, while at the same time acknowledging there's things that I don't like or understand. Let's get into the rotations, though, because you can argue that one of the reasons for the drop off in the third or fourth quarter may have been fatigue. You can argue that, the loss to Chicago, could be also fatigue. Plus, the Knicks have been on the road for some time. So let's get into the rotations. They're 9 when everybody's available, but if somebody gets hurt, going down to 8. It's shrinking. It's shrinking to 8, and those bench players, when it does get to 8, without McBride, they don't see more than 15 minutes. McBride can get 20, 25, but if he's out, those other guys aren't getting more than 15 minutes. So that's a bit more pressure on the starting unit, but just more minutes that they they have to play. So I guess my question is, are you more concerned with the lack of rotation, bench minutes, more concerned about them being fresh in the fourth quarter, more concerned about the risk of injury down the line, or if it's both, what's first and what's second for you? Tony, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry, what was the second part?
Given the rotation and the minutes that the starters are playing, particularly Josh Hart and Bridges, Brunson, I believe, is under 35 minutes a game. Towns is probably at 35, maybe a little bit above 35. So it's really Bridges, OG, Anunoby, Hart, And now that McBride is out, Cat's minutes has crept up, Brunson minutes have crept up. Are you more concerned about them not being fresh in the fourth quarter? Are you more concerned about the risk of injury down the line? And if it's both, what are you most concerned about?
I would probably put the fourth quarter above injury. I just feel like that whole injury thing is kind of overstated, and if that's your feeling, you're gonna voice it loud. I'm just on the opposite side of that for the most part. Now, because the injury can happen at any time. The managing though is, that's different. You up 25, you don't need the guys in, because now you have the opportunity for a senseless injury that, but you get the injury in the midst of, trying to fight back or whatever the case. I mean, that happens. That's part of the game. So I'm more concerned with just trying to spare people throughout the game, have them fresh for the fourth quarter. If that's what it. I think he's made that mistake more than people blaming injuries on Thibodeau. You know what I mean? So that's just how I view it.
Okay. Do you think the bench? Well, let me go around because I want to ask everybody this question. Geoff?
I think it's really tricky because it's like you're walking a tightrope with this. Like, you need to play the best players so you win the game, so you get the seed that you want in the playoffs. Because if you don't have a high enough seed, you're probably not going to win in the playoffs. But you need to get everybody to the playoffs so you have a full team so you can compete at the level you want to be in at the playoffs. So, it's kind of like darned if you do, darned if you don't. I'm not sure that there's an easy answer. I don't, it's like, I'll give you an example. In the Chicago game, I felt like every minute that Towns wasn't on the floor was a disaster for the Knicks. And he only missed 10 or 11 minutes, but in that 5-minute stretch when he was off the floor, it felt like that lead ballooned to 30 points, and we just had no answers on the offensive end. When for the second game in a row, Chicago showed they have no hope, no clue on how to prevent Towns from getting whatever he wants. I mean, he's scored 40 points against them both times that we've lost both games. So I don't know, I haven't looked at it close enough to say what definitively it was this or that, but it just seemed like in that game in particular, when I was watching, I was like, why isn't Towns in the game? Why, he's
not even realizing the minutes. Part of me.
Yeah. And I think he played 37, and he was -5. So my eye test isn't completely accurate on that, but compared to the plus minus of the rest of our starters, he was probably the best one. And I really felt like it showed. In the time that he sat, we were getting cooked. And I know it's not necessarily a defensive thing. I mean, we gave up 130 something points. I think that's the highest we've given up in the Thibodeau era. But so again, do you rest him more and let that go? And like at the end in the fourth quarter, I definitely wouldn't have played him, because I would have considered it a lost game. But a lot of the attitude of this team, a lot of the culture of this team is we never give up. We play till the final, whistle, buzzer, whatever you want to call it. And you saw that. I mean, I thought we got it under 10, and we had that stretch where we had the 3-pointer that was an offensive foul, and then they got a cheap foul on the other end and got 3 free throws, and it went from a 5-point game potentially to an 11-point game. To me at that point, that was call off the dogs time. Like I had it written off at that point. But again, I'm not being paid to make those decisions, so it's easy for me to write off or say this or that. He's the one who could get fired for his minutes distribution, not me.
Do you think? I mean, I hear you in terms of blowouts either way. How willing are you? how important is seeding, and how, well, that's an extreme. Are we willing to lose a few more games with better minutes distribution? Like, as a fan base, can we tolerate that? Like, guys are not going to play above 35, 36 minutes a game, and we're just going to live with the consequences. And again, obviously, you're going to try to give them, the bench the minutes in the middle of the game. We're not talking about closing the game. You're going to give the bench extended minutes, second, um, third quarter, then put the starters in so that they're fresh in the fourth and they're able to close. But how much do you think the Knick fan, and those in the chat can chime in as well, are we willing to tolerate, maybe a few less wins? I don't think we're going to fall down to like 6th seed. You know what I mean? But, a few less wins. Do you think the fan base would be okay with that? I don't know. Whoever was next could,
Queen. I mean, pardon me, Lady and the Chef.
Okay.
If a few less wins means we'll end up in maybe the 4th seed, that's okay. But I think if we go 6th, that's not tolerable. I don't think we should put a lot of emphasis on the Knicks having this great regular season record, because to me, I'd rather you be ready for that next level of intensity in the playoffs. But I also think that we need to hold this team to a level of standards. Like, I don't think that it's okay for us to just be like, okay, if they win another 50 games, that's cool. Like, can we shoot for 55? Can we try to get 57 wins, maybe 58? That would be nice in a regular season, but I don't think that there'll be this huge discrepancy amongst the Knicks fan base if the Knicks drop down to 4th, maybe 5th. But okay, you get a decent
But that's
opponent.
not 57, 58 wins. Now you're
It's
talking
not.
about 45, 46, 47 wins.
It's not, but I think that I personally think if you get into 4th, then that's okay. But if you dip down to 5th now, I'm a little like, I don't know, because now you don't know where that's going to land you for the playoffs. But I think a couple of games that you lose, but I think in all reality, if you can add some of those guys from the bench into the game to help alleviate, I still think that at the end of the day, you're going to have your prime main guys on the team playing 35, 40, plus minutes a game. But I think that if you can get some of these guys in off the bench, you'll never know what they're going to do if you have them sitting down on the bench like towel boys. And I just said this on our live the other day. One of my issues also with Tibbs is that I don't feel like he knows how to utilize when we have good shooters on the team, like Shaman. He's out there, and I see Shaman. I love his energy, first of all. He's almost reminds me of Josh Hart. He's hustling, he's getting a rebound, he's diving for basketballs, he got quick hands and feet, but he's standing out in the corner on the angle of the 3-point line. And I don't feel like we're utilizing him to set him up so that Brunson is facilitating a hit off our shooters, guys that he know he can shoot. Rather, that ball is going to Bridges, it's going to OG, which is cool. I'm not knocking that. The guys are playing well. But I think when you have guys like that off the bench, that's where it takes you to be the leader, the captain, to realize, okay, let me break this guy off. Let me hit him off, just how we do Deuce. But I think you got to get a guy like Shaman who's more than capable of giving you some points off the bench as well. And I saw this on Twitter. Fans were a little upset with Campaign, who's another one who I thought the energy's just been a little low the last 2 games. I don't know if he's not getting enough sleep. He needs a booster shot. I don't know what's going on with him. His energy just looks a little too slow. But I think that, again, if you play these guys off the bench, allow them to make the mistakes now, because you never know which one of those guys can be an X factor come playoff time. But if we'll never know if we, and my thing is, I feel like what's going to happen is Mitchell Robinson's going to come back. He's only going to be able to get limited minutes initially, as he's still going to be working to get conditioning. But I think as a fan base, we have to stop putting so much emphasis on, when Mitch comes back, he's going to make this big array of change. And this is not a Mitchell Robinson hate. I think he can make a difference, but it's going to take a collective team effort, a community of these guys to make a difference on this team. So I don't know. I think if you lose a couple of games and it lands you in fourth, cool. But I think if you go past that and you dip down to sixth seeding in the East, that's not okay.
Yeah, the thing about it is there's not going to be any way to tell.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any way to tell. If how good is the bench though? So because this is an important consideration. Is this a good bench that the coach is just holding back by not giving them extended minutes? And there's more to be had from these players if we were to give them extended minutes, or are they just not good? And that's why they're not getting extended minutes. And it's easy for us to say, well, if you give them more time, they will be good. Personally, I don't believe in that. I don't believe if you give somebody more time, they're going to automatically turn and become a better player. But I do wonder, can we get more from the players that we have, or are they just not good? And the Knicks really need an upgrade on the bench, really, because it's not how much more you're going to be able to get from these guys. Geoff, your thoughts on that? Then Tony.
Well, I think we'd all like it if we could just have our bench players come in and not skip a beat from our starters, and that would be awesome. But he's got the role players for a reason, right? They all have their strengths, but they all have, legitimate flaws in their games. If they didn't have those flaws, they would be starters. So, I actually, Campaign struggled the last couple of games. I agree with Lady, but overall, I think Payne has been a real boost for us. He's a natural point guard. He has good court vision. His assist numbers are really good, in my opinion. I like the way he sees the floor when he's out there. As long as I don't have to watch him shoot, make as many as you can, bro. I'm with you on that. Actually, I like what I've seen from Landry Shamet defensively. I thought he was a little pest in that Chicago game. I thought he showed some things that I've never seen out of his game. So I don't know if that's just being in the Tom Thibodeau culture or what have you. Obviously, Deuce has been hurt so much of the season. So I think when he's healthy, Thibodeau doesn't have a problem playing him 25, 30 minutes at all. Yeah. And so that is kind of a luxury that we've been missing for a good while now. Precious is up and down. Sometimes Precious looks really good. He has his moments. I love his switchability defensively. Every time he shoots the ball, I cringe. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but especially if he's, his finishing in and around the rim just is like, I don't know. It's just inconsistent to me. Sometimes he's a really good rebounder. Sometimes he's not. I feel like we kind of get up and down with that. But overall, I think Achua adds a lot to our lineup. So I want him to get minutes. But again, you're talking about imperfect players with serious flaws in their game. So you're going to see, you're not going to, sometimes you're going to get the best out of them and sometimes you're not. And when you don't, it's, man, our bench is terrible. And truth is, the bench is just our bench. They're there. They serve a purpose. They do their job well. They play their role well sometimes, and they don't play their roles well at other times. Do I want an upgrade? Absolutely. I think this team could use another wing, preferably a taller one, like 6'8" and above would be nice. I know we don't like to acquire people over 6'4", but they're out there, and we should try it out sometime, and we might like it. And it'd be nice to get Mitchell Robinson back healthy and playing the backup 5 minutes, because I think that would do a lot for us as well.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to the chat. Very active today. Appreciate you. A lot of sentiment that the bench is not good because they don't get playing time. I definitely disagree. But I would like to see the bench more to just buy minutes. So I guess that's the question I have. Do you feel like this is a bench that you play more just to try to buy minutes for the starters? The lead may not extend. We may not cut into the lead if we're down, but this is the type of bench that you use to try to buy minutes so that your bench is your starters are fresh in the fourth quarter. Or do you feel there is a player or two, if not more, on this bench that, if given extra minutes, can actually really help the team? Lady&TheChef, we'll start with you.
Um,
Oh, go ahead, Tony. Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to say, I mean, I guess I'm answering both questions because I think the bench is good enough. Honestly, I think the bench has a longer road to finding its way than the starters do. And if we're going to acknowledge that the starters have you know what I mean, they still finding their way, you got to acknowledge the same for the bench. Think about this. Precious was out for how long? He's still being reacclimated. Shamet, who we all thought was going to be integral to this bench, just coming back. He's got to take some time to be reacclimated. Not just individually, but as a team, you know what I mean? They got to find a individual rhythm and they got to find a rhythm within the team. The same is going to be said once Mitchell Robinson comes back. You know what I mean? So the bench unit, I think, is good enough, but they have a longer road to kind of finding their path on the team because of how the season transpired with these guys being injured and missing significant time. That being said, I do think we need to utilize our bench. However it may be, these guys coming back, the guys that are here, as much as possible to give our main guys as much of a break and a cushion as possible.
What do you think the ceiling, like, is there a player or two on this bench that you feel like, if given more minutes, they can produce more for you? And are you expecting scoring for them? Are you expecting like what's your expectation?
I guess my first person would probably be Deuce, considering we've seen him step into a starting role. We've seen what he can do in large minutes. We've seen him play down the stretch or offense defense substitutions. You know what I mean? So I think Tibbs is figuring out, you know, he's already he's in the loop. You know what I mean?
He already getting 20-25 minutes. I mean, other than Deuce, because he's already getting minutes when he's healthy.
After Deuce, I mean, I think right now it is what it is with Precious, but he's another one that he's shown with more minutes with a defined role he can produce. And he's another guy I think from last year earned Tibbs' trust, but it's more about a rhythm and finding his way. And then I also think the same with Shamet. I think they saw something in him why they waited for him to come back and then re-sign him and bring him back. So those three guys, I think, can be integral. It's just about the time it's going to take for them to kind of find their rhythm back in, and they look good. They look good in the preseason, all of them. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm going from. Go ahead, Quinn. What was you saying?
Are you, and not necessarily with each other, because it may not be like last year, right? When you would have four bench players with one starter. What I'm noticing this year is there might be two bench players and three starters. You know, so they have to they're playing a lot of times. They're playing with the starting unit. You know, with two or three players from the starting unit.
And the more that varies, the more time that takes for guys to get used to this five versus this five. You know, these two plus this three. So all that takes, you know what I mean, time. My last point, if you look at the teams that's ahead of us, we fourth in the NBA. One thing that all those guys have is more chemistry together, more time together. You know what I mean? Like these guys, I mean, obviously, he's got to fill in like a glove, but the rest of them guys, they all been together for a couple years now. Caruso, I don't even think he's played yet. You know what I mean? Boston, they've been together for how long? And Cleveland, that core four is the same team that we beat a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like they've been together for some time. So it's gonna take some time for us to really peak. I said it before the season. It might not even be this year when we actually peak as a unit.
I guess my question is, can you really peak and not have a good bench? Like, what's the peak for the Knicks if you don't have a good bench? Because either you're going to play the starters a lot of minutes, or you're going to Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's the peak? If you don't, if you're not getting bench support, what are you expecting from the starting unit? Like, you expecting them to go all the way to the finals just playing 38, 40 minutes and not getting a lot of bench support? I think
No,
it's going to be hard, in my opinion, for the Knicks to peak without a bench, whether you go out and get players that Tibbs trust or Tibbs just decides to just grow this bench. I think it goes hand in hand in terms of how far the Knicks can go. You could Tony and then Geoff and then Lady and the Chef.
I mean, I already answered. Really, I think those three guys just need time to kind. Those three, I'm comfortable with. Mitch coming back, I'm comfortable with. But overall, for them to be at their peak, those guys, they're gonna need time after coming back from these injuries. I think a lot of the Knicks fans, outside, really want to see the Koliks, you know what I mean, the Daddiers, the Huckporties, and I'm not mad at them playing, but I'm not relying on any of those guys to be a defined rotation guy. I think those guys could give you spot minutes. The Precious, Shamet, McBride, even Cam, I've been surprised with, you know what I mean? But Mitch coming back, I think those are our core bench guys
to
currently.
Get more time to help the bench. Okay. Geoff, your thoughts on that? Or
well,
anything?
A couple things. I guess the first one being that I think if Thibodeau had his druthers, I think he would have a 9-man rotation. I don't know that he has 9 guys that he trusts right now, as Tony rightly pointed out. Precious missed the first 20 games. Shamet about the same way. So we're just adding them back. Mitchell Robinson is still on the back of a milk carton. So, you got, and that was supposed to be 3 of your primary 4 guys, really, of your 9-man bench unit. So you've got an unexpected contribution, I think, from Campaign. And we haven't really played a whole lot. And Mitchell, not Mitch, but Deuce, has been our 6th starter is what I call him, because he's always getting his minutes, his allotment of minutes. So you're really only playing 7 guys, which is not a surprise when you have, 3 of your top 10 who are out of the lineup. So, I think that if the players were available, I think you would see it more. Is it a knock on Tim? He's not trusting any of these other guys and, elevating them to the 9th, 8th and 9th spot. You make that argument, and I won't say that you're wrong, but I can kind of see where he's coming from, not playing some of those guys. I mean, there's only so many Jericho Sims minutes I want to see in a given game. But then there have been times when he's been really good at rim protection and provided some solid minutes. So it's tough to tell. But so I think from that standpoint, I think Tibbs is willing to play 9 guys, depending upon the 9 guys. And I just don't think that the 9 guys that he wants to play have all been available at the same time. And if that's a knock on him, that's valid. I'm not gonna, speak one way or the other about it. I just think that that's what the circumstances are. So we hadn't heard from Lady in a while, so I kind of want to pass the floor over to her.
Well, my thing is, as far as the bench goes, I do think that this Knicks team, the core guys of what you all have been saying, I do want to see them playing more. But I also do want to see, like what Queen was saying, where you have maybe 3 starters and 2 guys from the bench. Try different combinations in that regard to get some of those, get your, I and again, I said this before, I like what I'm seeing, the confidence and the growth on both Josh Hart and Deuce as far as their shots are this season. But as far as the bench goes, I want to see the bench guys playing. And I agree with Geoff that maybe Tibbs feels like because you've had injuries, you haven't been able to play them. But we all know Tibbs goes off of a trust-based system. But one of the things that I think that when you look at kind of the root of all this is we keep discussing chemistry and how the bench has to develop chemistry, which is very true. But one of the things that concerns me is the past maybe 2 seasons now, the front office, Leon and the gang, I like to call them as Cool and the gang, Leon and the gang have been making their versions of trades and trying to put the right pieces in place for this team. And I think that and I'm sure the Knicks may make some type of move in the off season. I feel like that's part of what's disrupting us having our roster stay together and the chemistry to grow, right? Because you guys mentioned like with Boston and OKC and Cleveland, they've been together a long time. And the majority of the roster here has been together a while now. But when you keep adding in, you got your Karl Anthony Towns, you brought in campaign, and you may make another move in the off season and bring in another player. That kind of puts you back a step or two from the chemistry building for guys to be able to play together, and same thing for development from the bench. But I do think that as far as the bench goes, I would like to see, if you got Cam and Shem and also Tibbs utilizing these guys who can shoot the ball in the game. And as far as the rookies go, I think that they're that next tier, and Tibbs has to do a good job. That's where it takes that leadership from a coach to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I need you to do, and play your role out there, and not just necessarily, I don't want to see him just keep continuing to use those guys as bodies in practice. Like, we need to see those guys be able to make the mistakes, you know what I mean? And learn to play in real live game situations, not just in practice when we're practicing against our teammates and you're practicing against Brunson and Cat, but playing in real live game situations, make the mistakes, allow them to grow. You gave Sims the floor to be able to say, hey, make the mistakes, do whatever you need to do. But I would like to see him do that with the rookies. But I don't want to see the disruption so much, or too broad, I would say, when you try to bring in, we need another piece on the bench. We need I don't know what the situation is as far as Mitchell Robinson, the center position, because if we're looking for chemistry and growth, and I hear you guys when you're saying that, I guess because we've been the front office is trying to make sure, okay, we need this person and we need this because this didn't work last season. And that's all well and good, but where that growth kind of gets disrupted is what I'm basically trying to say.
Yeah.
But we've also continually improved with these moves done year in and year out. Whatever they've transpired, it's also improved the team. So I think it just comes with it. Like, you're gonna always try to build the team and make the team better. But every time you do that, you may take a step back in one area and take 2 steps forward in another by making that move. So I like the track record. You know what I mean? So
I agree. I think the front office has done a phenomenal job at the trades and the moves that they've made. I trust in what they're doing. I like what they brought in. Hell, we brought in Karl Anthony straight off a plane and put him on a jersey, and it's been working so far. I trust, and I really see the vision of where they're trying to bring this team and for them to go. I just don't want to see where, we missed the opportunity to bring in the right guy off the bench, which I don't think that they're going to do. They make it work some way. And I'm sure they're on the phones right now as we speak. They're figuring out, okay, well, we still need this piece. They're watching the game just like we are. And they're like, this isn't working. We're going to need strength here. We need this. But here's the thing. Even when you do bring in those pieces, my biggest question lies is Tibbs going to play that guy? Exactly. You bring in a guy for the bench. Is Tibbs going to play him? Is he going to add him in the rotations and add him in the combinations with this guy and that guy? And then, like Steph was saying, that balance you need that you're missing from Brunson to be able to orchestrate the offense when you're out there. You got to talk. I want to see more communication when these guys are on the floor. I don't know what's this secretive. We don't want to talk to each other because we're in the NBA and we're not in college anymore. Talk. It'll help you while you're on the floor. And that's where the leadership from the coach comes from. I need Tibbs to be like some of these great college coaches out there. You got to say, that's not what we need. I need this. You got to correct these things. And not just when we're watching film. You got to, again, I brought this up before, and I remember, Queen, you said, I'm not sure who's the vocal leader, because that's what I said. I'm not sure who's the guy on this team who says, yo, we're not losing this effing game. We got to come up. We got to do this. We got to make the adjustments. And again, and I agree with you, Geoff, I do see where this team fights. I've seen them come back and they're like dogs. in this game, but you lost to Chicago twice, a team that's not better than you. That cannot happen. It cannot happen. Yes, you're going to lose games, but you can't lose to teams like Chicago and allow Kobe to go off and have 41, 44 points, however many points he has, and just Levine look like he's never had an injury in his day. I said, what kind of medicine are they giving that guy? Ball is jumping up in the air and dunking the ball. I said, what is going on in Chicago? Because it was Derrick Rose night. They felt like, yeah, we're going to take it to these guys on D Rose night. We're not going to lose tonight. That's what I saw. I said, what the hell is going on?
It's possible, though, because their energy did increase after halftime.
Yeah.
And that was a long ceremonial break. Like I guess it was like 7 minutes longer than a normal halftime.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'll say. I'm not sure how good the individual players on the bench are. I think there's a drop off when you go from. There's always a drop off when you go from the starting unit to the bench. I think our drop off is a little bit more, in my opinion. But what I would like to see is just extend those guys minutes in the second, third quarter to see if you can buy minutes. I'm not even expecting them to pop off with points, and if they do, that's great. I'm just trying to buy minutes so that in that fourth quarter, OG's is a little more rested. Bridges is a little more rested. Hart is a little more rested, and if we do have to dig out a hole, we have a little more energy to make that happen. Like I said before, this idea that if you give Campaign 30 minutes or 20 minutes, you're going to see more. Campaign is a journeyman for a reason. Shamet, and I like Shamet, he's a journeyman for a reason, right? These guys every year they're on a different team. Why? They're not high level players. They're guys you stick in there and they can give you a few good minutes. That's who they are. Now, if the Knicks want higher level bench players that's going to do more than just buy minutes, then you got to give to get. Who do we have that we're willing to give up? Because you're going to have to bring in somebody that really moves the needle for Thibodeau to play. If you're bringing in a low level bench player, you just rearranging the chairs on the deck. I don't think Thibodeau is going to play that guy. You know what I mean? So unless you're going out and getting a 20 to 25 minute guy, just stick with what we have because they're not going to play. You know, you go out and get a 10-minute guy. I don't see where that guy is going to play. So this is where we are. I don't see a lot of upside in this bench. But again, I do think you can buy minutes with them because it's the consecutive minutes that these guys are playing. 30 consecutive minutes, 28 consecutive minutes. Can we break it up a little bit? You know, give them a 3-minute breather plus a timeout. You know, maybe that'll be like 8-minute actual break. You know, maybe that'll help them, right? So to me, I feel like this is serious, and I'm not even focusing on the injury risk at this point. I'm just focusing on being fresh in the fourth quarter and being a good team. I don't think you're going to be able to. We have one of the best starting lineups in the league. It's just not enough. I just don't think it's going to be enough without a bench that can either take it up a notch when they're out and hold it down, or buy them significant minutes. One or the other.
Quinn, you don't think we've learned our lesson in the sense like with the Cam situation? I don't think we go through that again where we trade for somebody and it's not a collective communicative thing between Tibbs front office. Like I don't think the front office is gonna do a move, you know what I mean, as a like some type of savvy move or whatever, and it not run by Tibbs and he give the okay, like, yeah, I could use him. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it's run by Tibbs, but then when Tibbs get them in house and see them, you know, I mean, because I'm pretty sure Tibbs had a hand in Ryan coming on the team. But once he got him in and they started playing, Like,
But
yeah, I
but
don't
do
know.
you think that was a Tibbs? Like, I think if Tibbs making that decision, there has to be merit to it, right? Because I feel like you look at Shamit, he come back, it's spotty minutes, but he getting his minutes right away. You know what I mean? Like Tibbs, so it has to be something that he sees or knows. Ryan, I think we all knew was like a stopgap. You know what I mean? Like a holdover, if you will. Like, you know what I mean? He cost us nothing. We didn't trade for him. That's what I'm saying. Like a trade, I feel like they all on the same page now. I feel that like that way since the the camp situation. I don't think that we go through that again. Personally, I mean,
Yeah.
now if we do, I would assume there's merit behind it, or whatever Tibbs is or isn't seeing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but the options are
Well,
scarce. I'll say that.
the options are definitely scarce. And I don't see anybody that's out there. Now, players become available, all the time. But when you think about, the rumor mill and what's been out there, do you want Valanciunas? I don't want Valanciunas. I mean, I don't have anything against him. Yeah, I don't want Valanciunas. Kobe Martin, Caleb or Kobe. I'm not sure which one is available. I mean, to be okay. I don't know if that's a significant, upgrade. And who do we have?
We said that
So I,
about
I think
Carl
the Knicks
Anthony,
gonna have to
though.
play this one out. Say that again.
We said that about Carl Anthony. I heard shout out to Simeon said that when him and Tony was on the show, he said we was calling him soft. Some people disagreed with campaign coming to this team.
That's
And
true.
people was nervous about Mikal coming here.
Yeah.
I think until the player gets here, then we could assess because it seems like lately guys have been coming here and performing and living up to, the front office hasn't been bringing in any bust. We've done a good job not bringing in injury prone guys or guys that's just a total bust who's going to end up on a bench for us. So we'll never know until players get over here. Like we may say that, but hypothetically, you bring in Valanciunas, we may be like, oh, wow. It may be a part two of what we saw with Mitch and Hartenstein, with maybe him and what's his name, Carl Anthony. We may be like, yo, this is actually working out. Look at what's going on here. The offense picking up, the defense is picking up. It is, but I think that we never know it. But then it also falls into what we all been saying is Tibbs are gonna. I mean, yeah, a player like Valanciunas is gonna give him minutes, but like Matt Ryan, he's another one. He's a good shooter. You're not utilizing him. I just think Tibbs is really playing for Tibbs is like working for the post office. You're on the long list before you become a regular. You just you're kind of like you're not in there. You work there, but you're not fully in the union yet. Because it's based off of seniority until you can get in there, and it's just unfortunate. But I think that we can't, as a fan base, keep saying, well, I don't want this guy, or I'm not really sure, because so far guys have been coming here and we like, oh, well, listen here. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this guy so far.
Yeah, that's true. But Valanciunas is a no defense guy in your second unit, and I don't really get the hype over Matt Ryan though. I mean, Matt Ryan could shoot, but I don't really get the hype of this guy. Was out of the league. He's played in. I mean, it's not just Tibbs. This guy has not had opportunities for multiple. He's played on multiple teams, and hasn't been good on multiple teams. Right? Shaman is a journeyman. I like Shaman. Payne is a journeyman. I like Payne. I think the idea that Tibbs is doing something that other coaches aren't doing when it comes to these players, I think is overstated. Like they're journeymen for a reason. It's only but so much you're going to be able to get out of them. But I do think we can extend their minutes some and buy some minutes for our guys. Tony?
I was just gonna say, even like, give me the journeyman like Cam that kind of was already out the league and had to fight his way back, and kind of wants, you know what I mean? Like he's want to do anything any role, anything he got to do to stick around, he's gonna do that. Like, give me those journeymen as opposed to the guy who doesn't seem to stick. You know what I mean, or find a role or figure it out. Like,
Right.
I think Shamit you could put in that same type of situation where he's kind of found his niche as a journeyman. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to a guy just struggling to make the team, struggling to stay on the team, let alone find a role, let alone be in the rotation. You know what I mean? Like, so I think those are two different type of role players. But on the flip side, you look at our main guy who started off as a role player, right? So it was in there the whole time. You guess it wasn't until the opportunity came, and then the opportunity on the big stage came. You know what I mean? That he really was able to solidify himself in Brunson. So I mean, there's an argument for any way you want to look at it.
But I think Brunson grew over the years. I think the idea that, these guys who pop, they had that all along and they just didn't have an opportunity. I don't know about that. I just think over the years you get better and you get better and you get better, and you get your opportunity and you get a chance to show it. This wasn't Brunson his rookie year.
No, absolutely not. But if you look at the pedigree, you know what I mean? If you look at, like, there's people out there who will say this was him the whole time. You know what I mean? But regardless, there's a pecking order, there's politics, you know what I mean? Like, and then there's opportunity. Like, opportunity is the main thing. And not just Brunson. I think you could talk to like numerous former players and ask them about what opportunity means. And they may not have a story about themselves. They may have a story about a teammate who either didn't get the opportunity but was cooking in practice and doing everything they were supposed to do, or the guy that had to wait until he got his opportunity. So that's just my flip side on you know what I mean? Like, you never know who can pop once they get that opportunity.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Anything else before we move into the game tonight? No. So we play Orlando tonight. From what I understand, Banchero is working his way back, but he's still out tonight. Franz Wagner is out. Mo Wagner is out. I don't know if Suggs is playing. I know he's had some injuries. But at the end of the day, it's really about the Knicks. You lose 2 in a row. You at home. I don't care who's on the floor. A lot of times when there's a lot of players out, those guys bring a lot of energy to show that, they should have been in the rotation or whatever it is. They tend to come with a lot of energy. So I hope the Knicks are not coming in thinking that this is going to be an easy game. Thoughts on any keys to the game and predictions? Geoff, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't think Shaq or Penny are going to play either, so I think that's probably a benefit for us. But we got to protect the ball and maximize our possessions. Let Karl Anthony Towns cook. We got to get a W in this one. I think they played last night, and I don't think they played particularly well. But everybody comes to the Garden and has their, Kobe White moment, where they're 9 of 7 from 3 or something like that. So every game is dangerous. I have PTSD, but we got to get a win tonight. By hook or by crook, I don't care. Again, we may not be healthy either. I don't know who all is playing and who all is not. So, that's going to affect things as well. But, just go out there and get a win.
Yeah, they're 4-6 in their last 10, and they lost their last game. Lady&TheChef?
Yeah, they just lost to Utah. So, and because we beat them, they're going to be looking to get revenge tonight against the Knicks. But no, I'm definitely looking for the Knicks to take advantage. I saw Jericho supposed to be starting in replace of Karl Anthony. So that should be interesting. Hopefully he's fired up and stayed ready, and he's ready to come out there and do what he does. But yeah, I'm looking for the Knicks to get a win. Like, let's get back on a winning column. Let's get back on track, play defense, guard the perimeter, and just be aggressive tonight.
Yeah, when Towns doesn't play, it kind of changes how we play because so much of our offense goes through him when we're playing right. So it's going to be interesting to see how the offense flows without him. Tony?
Well, let's wash the stink off from them last two losses. Make us forget about it. I'm not really worried. I said I'm not going to be overconfident anymore this year, but I'm pretty confident tonight that we get this dub. We bounce back pretty well. So
Yeah.
start a new streak.
I think it'll be a crisis in Knick fan land if the Knicks lose tonight and we go on a three-game losing streak. I'm pretty sure everybody here has the Knicks winning tonight. That's the prediction. For this week, though, Wednesday we play Toronto. IQ is back. Friday, and all of these games are at home. Friday, OKC at the Garden, and then Sunday we play Milwaukee. So, Orlando and Toronto are not doing very well. Toronto is 8-27 on the season, but then again, Friday we just saw OKC. They're 30-5, and Milwaukee got off to a not so good start to say the least, but they've climbed back to one game over 500. They're 17-16, though they've lost their last two. What kind of week would you do out of these four games? What's your prediction for the week, Geoff?
I think we're going to go 2-2. I think we've got injuries. I think we're banged up. I think, we haven't exactly been a dominant force at home anyway. We're 11-4. I would love to say different, but I think tonight is a trap game, and OKC on Friday is going to be real hard, regardless healthy or not. And then the Bucks game is not going to be easy either. So I say we're going to go 2-2.
Wow. Lady&TheChef?
I'm shocked, Geoff. I got us 3-1. 3-1, and I'm not sure where that one comes from, Milwaukee or OKC. But yeah, we got to get back on the course, and I'm all about no excuses. Get the job done. 3-1.
4-0. I'm back, baby. 4-0. We getting our revenge on OKC. You know what I mean? We take care of business one at a time, but 4-0.
Yeah, I want to say 4-0 as well. 3-1 at the very least. I don't know who's going to be healthy. I don't know if Cat, because I think that changes everything if Cat misses the next the next few games. So if Cat is playing, then yeah, I'll say 4-0. And then if Brunson misses time, yeah. And then we'll see what happens with the bench, if there's going to be any changes in terms of playing them a little bit more and bringing the starters minutes down some. Any last words? Shout out to the chat, by the way. Appreciate you. Very active tonight. Any last words?
Salute to Sim for having the channel so we can all be on the panel. Thanks for having me, Tony. You're great as always. Hopefully we get a loser's lounge out of this one. And Lady&TheChef, you're just a treasure. I love your opinions and keep bringing. I learn something every time. And Queen, you already know.
Appreciate you. Lady&TheChef, any last words or anything you have coming up as well?
Yeah, I think this month is going to be this month in February is going to be an interesting month, both months for the Knicks. So I'm very curious to see how the Knicks pan out these next 2 months. And yeah, check us out. Me and Diva Locks, we're on Two Knicks Chicks every Sunday at 11. We went on a little later this past Sunday, but usually 11 a.m., sometimes 12. And on Thursdays, we are on at 7. So check us out.
All right. Tony?
Just happy to be back on the panel.
I miss you, man. It seemed like it's been forever.
I say it every week. I'll try to jump in when I get home Thursday because you should still be on. So
yeah.
And salute to the panel, the chat, replay gang, Sim.
Yeah. Tony, Lady&TheChef, Geoff, Sim, everybody in the chat, the replay gang. I appreciate you. Let's get this win tonight. Hopefully everybody is, it'll calm us down. I think the frenzy is going to be at an all-time high if the Knicks don't win this game, even without Cat. No excuses, as Lady and the Chef say. Bring it home. All right.
That's right.
Until next time.